Drevo have grown into one of the bigger budget brands in the mechanical keyboard market, and a big part of that was them releasing their Calibur keyboard like 2 years ago, which kind of opened up budget mechs to more exotic layouts rather than cycling full-sized and 10 keyless boards. Fast forward to now and we finally have the V2. Inside the box we have the keyboard itself, some paperwork, a Drevo sticker, a wire keycap puller, USB Type-C cable, and 2 keyboard feet. And it's always nice when they include a dust cover. So first things first, it is not the same layout, but it is still pretty much the same functionally as it has the same amount of keys at 71. They've gone for a more compact layout which gets rid of that wasted space between the arrow keys and nav cluster, being much like a typical 65% with the addition of another column. To do this they got rid of the menu key, squeezed the arrow keys in a bit, and then arranged the nav keys in a vertical manner, and finally they added a pause key to fill in the space. So now it's essentially a 10 keyless keyboard in regards to primary functionality, but without the top row. They've also kept it pretty standard for keycap sizes. Normally when compressing a keyboard you change it up a bit, but we have standard sizes for the bottom row and even the right shift, and that leaves this tiny gap between the control and left arrow key, which for me looks absolutely fine and even gives it a bit of character. But yeah, I personally love the layout. At Computex I did see 2 boards like this with the extra 2 columns on the right, so we may see more of them soon. On the box it does say it will come with a range of layouts just like the V1 Calibur, but I don't think those had an ISO enter, which the website says for their V2. This does support both Mac and Windows, and you can switch between the 2 systems with FN and Tab, and it does show some of the Mac legends on the keycaps. In the hands it feels decent with minimal flex, and it's packing some decent weight at just over 600 grams, so pretty much the same as its predecessor. They've gone for a more aggressive aesthetic this time round. From the top down view it's very simplistic with minimal bezels, but then everywhere else is quite angular, sharp, and yeah, just more aggressive, but not overly. On both sides we get some RGB lighting which does angle down and shines on the surface it's on. On the rear there's just the USB Type-C port, so that's great to see, and on the bottom there's a couple of flat rubber feet, and more importantly, no flip-up feet. So the feet that were included in the box, they're just plastic pieces with rubber on one side and magnets on the inside, and because of magic, they stick to the case. The only thing that really holds it in place besides the magnets are the existing rubber feet, so while they don't slide off or anything, they're not the most secure. Honestly, just for convenience and for a board like this, flip-up feet are fine. Another change are the keycaps. Unfortunately, they have gone backwards in this department. They're thin 1mm ABS keycaps that are coated in black and then laser etched. So they don't feel great, the keys don't sound as good, they will shine over time, and the legends will fade away. So that's pretty disappointing because before they had double shot ABS or PBT keycaps which have a different piece of plastic for the legends. The advantage of this though is that we have a cleaner typeface or font to let that RGB lighting come through, but because of this kind of matte finish that the keycaps have, there's not as much contrast between the keycap and the lighting. The lighting is all controlled on board, and there's a bunch of effects and patterns available in which you can also customize colors with. Underneath the keycaps we have our Temu key switches, so just Cherry MX clones. I have the blues in mine which are clicky switches. There's some rattle with the stabilized keys, which is pretty normal for budget mechs, even though I can see some lube in there. If they just lubed them properly, it could have been better, but yeah, a pretty hollowy sounding keyboard with these keycaps and I guess a somewhat roomy enclosure. But thin keycaps can be good for clickies if you're into that. And yet another difference from the previous Calibur, this is not wireless, so no Bluetooth on this guy at the moment, but there's always a chance that they'll release a wireless version in the future. Opening up the keyboard is super easy with a couple of Phillips head screws under some keycaps. Here's the plastic enclosure. Not much here, but it's pretty sturdy because of its angular design, and it does have a bit of ribbing on the bottom surface. The standoffs are just tapped plastic, and we also have the translucent plastic on the inside. We have a pretty thin steel plate which gives the keyboard most of its weight and rigidity, and the PCB looks clean with nice solder joints. We have SMD RGB LEDs just like with most other RGB keyboards, and here's our little side RGB LEDs for that side glow. Right, so overall it's a mixed bag. This is also taking into consideration that this is the V2 of the Calibur, so usually it should be better. So what I think is better is the layout. It's one column shorter than the V1 while still keeping the same amount of keys, making it more space efficient. And I just like the look of this layout as an extended 65%, making it a 70% I guess, which makes it look cool because it's not so common. It now natively supports both Windows and Mac. The side glow, while maybe a bit aggressive, is still a plus in my opinion, and the USB Type-C connectivity is a nice upgrade. But then there's no wireless, which of course isn't a necessity, and they may have a wireless version in the future. The keycaps are now laser etched ABS instead of double shot, so they took a backward step there because that also impacts on how the keyboard feels when typing, being just cheaper feeling and hollowy. I'm on the fence about the feet. They look nicer than flip up, but they're not as convenient and can get lost. So overall, I think it looks nicer, but it loses some of the features that the previous gen had. Disregarding the previous gen though, it is quite a nice keyboard, just minus the keycaps. Awesome layout, customizable RGB backlighting, USB Type-C, side glow, but really it's that compact layout that makes it. Oh and yeah, it's $50 for all of that, which is the best part.